we want to improve design by helping all of the firms leverage technology and bend technology. Technology properly understood is any new and better way of doing things. And that's the way we approach it. It has nothing to do with software. It has nothing to do with a specific tool. It's just a mindset of constant improvement. If you ask me, like, what's your company like? Vertical or transversal?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask you.
That's both. I mean, it's both, and it's both because of the context of the industry. My advice would be ask yourself, why do we do things like that? I hate people when say, like, we've always done it like that. I'm like, wow.
Most Podern 팟캐스트.
Today, we're joined by Mercedes Karakiri, co-founder and CEO of Slantis, where she's pioneering technologies integration in architecture and construction. With nearly a decade of experience leading innovation AEC, she's a strong advocate for women in BIM and comes from an international background of working from places like Montevideo and Paris. She's here to help us answer the big question, why should architecture firms leverage external partners more? Mercedes, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
For those of us who are just listening and not watching, where does this podcast find you today?
Find me in a very, very exciting place. In New York, here for a week, so full of energy. And I think like ready to question a little bit why we do things. So I think that's why I like the podcast so much.
That's great. Well, I think maybe we should start by laying a little bit of context for our listeners. You co-founded Slantis with your co-founder, Andy. Can you tell us a little bit about where or how you guys founded Slantis? Why did you guys decide to focus on collaboration instead of just starting your own design firm?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the first thing you got to do when you start a new thing, it's start it before like giving too much thought. And that's what was our case. We've always thought about Slantis or whatever we created about something international. So I lived in France and moved a little bit all over and lived in Germany. So I think being international was like the number one thing for us somehow. And from my personal experience, like the firm was the typical architecture path. And I was coming from a moment in which I got mad at architecture, studied digital fabrication, just to get away from that.
What made you mad at architecture? I think maybe that's something a lot of listeners might be experiencing right now, but take us back to that moment. What made you mad and what made you decide to go into fabrication, explore different paths?
I think so. So when I was living in France, I studied there and then moved to Paris to work with Jean Nouvel. So I was very young and I got to where I wanted to be like very young. And what I was expecting was not what I was experiencing. Like the firm was great, the people were great, that it was very, very inspiring and motivating. But I didn't see myself following that any of the corners in. Let's put it that way. And it wasn't because of architecture. At some point, I thought architecture might have been the thing, but it was because of how things were done. I'm really passionate about art and design in general. So it was about how things were done. So I think that made me a little bit mad. And then I went back to Uruguay, like working amazing projects and stuff, but still like the way of doing things didn't add up for me. So I guess that like pushed me to study digital fabrication because I am a little bit of a nerd, you know, like, and that really opened my mind because I understood like the bare bones of electronics or software development, which I just like know very little, but I understand the logics of it. And I think that opens your mind so much and changed like completely the perspective of things. So I like to say I turned madness into opportunity after that because I did not understood why some processes in other industries were so elegant somehow. And in architecture, we had unelegant processes.
So it wasn't so much the design, the architecture itself, but how we produced architecture that really bothered you. Is this something that Andy shares? Is that something that you guys came together on?
Yes, I mean, we definitely agree on that. I think Andy's story, I think like we share stories and are like two sides of the coin. So I didn't see myself. I think like Andy was someone that always wanted to have like her company, and sometimes we joke like she would be selling socks, if not architecture and stuff. And I think like that's a very important side of the coin for having Slantis. Because like we have perspectives that are very different and come from different experiences and different places, but like in the end they converge in a goal of doing things in a better way, and understanding that what there is may not be the right thing. So I think it's just like both perspectives like converging to a point of questioning things and understanding like if something is done a certain way, then it doesn't have to be like that. So you don't need to always follow the trend.
All right, so let's talk about Slantis.
Yeah.
What is Slantis and what makes you guys unique?
So Slantis, Slantis is not a firm. People say we're a firm, we're not a firm. Slantis is an innovation company for the AEC. So I like to say we make technology happen for architecture that has been expanding towards the AEC, but we started in architecture because our background is architecture. And then I will dive into what we do specifically afterwards, but I think what makes us different is that we kind of start from blank when it comes to creating a company in the AEC. So like we're in the founder mode, like came with all these ideas, like we're going to be super innovative, we're going to be super collaborative, and we're going to change the industry for the better, like in 2 years. So that did not happen yet. And we evolve as we grow. So initially I said like we're changing the industry one project at a time. Then we started to say like we're changing the industry one firm at a time, because we started to get into firms and understand like more the firm level and not really the project level, and that's very different. Then one state at a time, and then like now we're going back to the basics, like, and we're thinking like how can we have an impact on every architect, even if they're clients or not. So that's like the path we're following. And I think what makes us different is that whereas a firm focuses on their processes, we focus on design. And then you'll see like design, I thought you do technology. Yes, we want to improve design by helping all of the firms leverage technology and bend technology, because in the end, if we have poor processes, like the thing you get at first is design. So like if you look around and see poor design, it's like probably because something else took that mind power. So we see how people do things differently, and we are very good like at helping companies to understand like which horses to ride. Because we see how people do commercial, people do multifamily, or and the different things, and then we see the software landscape, like how things evolve, like what are the products roadmaps, where do we see fit in specific project and specific software.
Is that challenge with firms kind of reallocating design time into their struggles with software, with innovation, part of what motivated you guys to go from a project level to a firm level? Like if you solve the problem at a much higher level, then all the projects will naturally run better.
Yes, definitely. So I think like, we have two main lanes of services. Like one's the architecture production one, which focuses mainly on production, and then the consulting one, which is BIM consulting and fabrication support. So the second lane, the consulting and fabrication, just like grew out of what clients saw value in we could provide, and because we were just like doing consultancy for free when we're developing projects. What I like to say is that if you start working with us on a firm impact level and on a consultancy level, you start a little bit fluffy, and then as we do a couple of projects together and help you understand where you're at, and with like minimal incremental changes, do some tweaks, then you end up with a six-pack. Like it's not from one day to another, but it does happen. And I think like having services or teams that grew out of a quiet need is the best thing you can have, because it really matches like the need with what we have to offer.
So some of our listeners are maybe in school, coming right out of school. They haven't had a lot of experience in practice, but something that's been happening more and more is, architects are working with more and more collaborators. And for you guys, you do both what you said, the production side and the innovation and consulting side. So why is it important for you guys to have both? And say for an architecture firm that is working with you, are they working with both of these parts, and how do they come together for that firm?
Good. Lots of questions there. I'll try to answer it all. So, so we have to, our clients get two roads for working with us. Like one would be the production side of things, and then they'll realize like, well, but we didn't do this on this other project. Like maybe we'll, and then we'll, then we'll get into the consulting side of things. And the other way would be like consulting, and we noticed that last year. So last year production was a little bit slow, but we got a lot of consulting requests. And then like as we do consulting, then you gotta, we target consulting from 4 areas. So one is the strategy, like why would you do this, and like root level problem things. The other one is the actual implementation, like the actual work on doing whatever you need. And then learning and distribution. I think like this is crucial. You can have like the best workflow standards or whatever in the world, but if people don't use it, then it's like having nothing. So we're very upfront on that. Like if you want a template and then let's walk away, we're not the kind of partner you're looking for, because we believe like all 4 areas are part of the same.
So you have to train the people to use the process.
Create. We're very good persuaders, and I think that's very important because people don't talk about that much. So we're very good at listening to people and understanding why they don't use a tool. So like most people would say like, yeah, no, they don't use it, they're just dumb. And then would say like, well, maybe it's us that are dumb, because like if they don't use it, there might be a reason. So like we try to get into the reason and understand like if it's like not handy, or if it's not clear, or if it's like not exactly tackling the problem they have. So like implementation, that goes like from documenting. I have a documenting obsession. And so from documenting to training to pretty much anything that has to do with adoption. And then the last one is troubleshooting. And then I'm like getting together like the production side and the consulting. So we wouldn't be able to do great consulting if we weren't involved hands-on on projects. So the troubleshooting area of it is making sure we are helping people who are actually developing things on projects, and we track that and have traceability, and that kind of gives us a pattern or a heat map on reality. Because like it's very easy to get sideways on like, oh, there's a new product, let's try it, we need this, and then like maybe the reality speaks differently, and then you have another problem that's worth solving. So I think like that gives us the best of both worlds, like and both units retrofit from each other. And
maybe this calls back to what you said earlier about your initial frustration with how architecture is produced. But why aren't firms doing this themselves?
I think that it's a good question, because I think what makes us different, besides our approach and our philosophy and our like founders' power in a good, I think we're very, very passionate about what, and very committed to, and very excited about what we're.
The energy is important.
Yeah, very excited about what you. So besides all that in our culture, which is like fascinating, I think we see different people trying to solve the same problem from different areas. So like firms don't see that. Firms don't see that because they're one firm. So we see different standards, we see different ways of doing things, we can anticipate 2 problems. So like so that firms cannot do, because it's part of what we're bringing to the table. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, I think internally for firms is there's many, I think there's many reasons. One is the incentives one. We're going to talk about incentives a lot. It's like, the structure of the AEC, poorly incentivizes, let's say, design or better processes, at least from an architect's point of view.
Right.
So you gotta be a little bit bold to create this model in-house, and then people who know about technology and architecture are hard to find because they go to Meta or they just like get bored very easily or get hired by someone else who's in a crunch and is willing to so like that's one thing. And then the other thing are incentives, and then you can do anything, but you can not do everything. So our profession is becoming more complex. So that demands a degree of expertise that you cannot having only one person. So you've got, I mean, the answer would be different for like different sizes of firms. But if you're small, and let's say small is like less than 20 or 30 people, then you cannot afford to have that level of expertise, because it wouldn't make sense, and because that's not your differentiation value. So that's why you would hire someone external, and it's like in garments, like fashion very much. It will do fashion analogies. If you wanna use like a specific bottom that's design and sap, like maybe you don't do it in house, and you go and hire someone who really knows about bottom to tune up your piece. So I think that's the same. Then in mid-size firms, and let's say that goes up to, I don't know, like 200 people. Let's put it that way. You will still have a little bit the same problem of it's very rare to find people who are technology savvy. If you are within that range, you probably want them to be producing as well, but you don't have a lot of work because you want them to be available, and that person would go away.
Right.
So you are in that in between, and I think like those, they're not my favorite, but it's the firms or the clients in which we can make more impact. Because like you're still nimble to adopt change. But you have a certain size that implies like having some processes in place which are like interesting to solve.
Right. So you're like just big enough to start having the economy of scale where process really matters, but you're not so big that you can have, say, like if you're a KDF, where you can have this whole in-house team developing technology for you.
Exactly.
But a small bit of that expertise, that knowledge about technology, really unlocks this huge productivity increase for what you're doing.
Exactly.
So on the topic of technology, I know you guys have a very unique approach. You guys are very passionate about it. Can you tell us a little bit about what is the Slantis perspective on technology and what you bring to the table for a firm?
For sure. I'll tell you what I try to say in every Wednesday general meeting. Hi team. So technology properly understood is any new and better way of doing things. And that's the way we approach it. It has nothing to do with software. It has nothing to do with a specific goal. It's just a mindset of constant improvement. And then you may think like, that's innovation. Yes, definitely. Because if you see a thing and you have a new and better way of doing it, that's technology. Like that's the original technical fundamental definition of technology for us, and that's the way we see it. So probably a firm will come in and say like, hey, I've heard, I was telling you earlier today, like, is it CATIA a good option for this? I overheard, like, we're working on some fabrication. Is CATIA a good idea for this? And they will just like go to the software. And then you gotta go to the root level problem and understand like what you're doing and if there's any new and better way of doing it. And then you can go into the technology. So for us, technology is just a way for doing new and better, for finding new and better ways of doing things, and that leaves more room for design.
I think that's really profound, and it totally makes sense that you have to be embedded into production in the strategy in order to understand what the right technology to use and what its impacts will be. So when you start working with a firm, on a piece of technology? Do they come to you and say, hey, we're thinking about adopting this technology, can you guys help us? Or is it something that rises more organically as you work with them on production, on strategy? Then you're like, hey, have you thought about using grass cover?
Right. I think both happen. Sometimes people come in and say like, we need this. And then, since we don't know them, we'll try to poke them a little bit to see if that's what they really need. Or if it makes sense to kind of reshape the original idea and try to go to, like a better problem framing. So like that would be one way. I think what's interesting about that is just like you're developing a tool and understanding a firm all together at the same time. So it's a very iterative and messy process, but in a good way. So that's one option. Then the other option is the one you mentioned, like we've been working together. We've done great progress together and stuff. And then like at the end of it, project would just document everything was great and everything that could be improved and if there's any opportunities. So like those opportunities kind of trigger like, okay, let's explore this or that. So like we always harvest opportunities of new implementation or just like, like aligning internally. Like we have different studios, different markets. I don't know, like one template for every market. Like, does that make sense? For example, I like here's an interesting thing that came out that way. So our production team it's very, very, very BIM savvy. So I joke that a PA at Slantis is like a PA plus a BIM manager. Because of how we were born, like because of the context of Slantis. And because of our knowledge management and tools and stuff. So we realized working with a client that their BIM team, which is amazing, was definitely undersized to support the production team.
Right.
So as our team can, let's say, like take out some things off their plate, we started realizing that setting up a file took a lot of time. This is a firm that has very a lot of projects starting together. So like they have a rhythm of starting projects like pretty high. So the BIM management team couldn't work on, like research and development or just like supporting project because it took a lot of time for them to create. So they were undersized for that. And that problem came out of reality. So what we did and what we propose is just like building, it's just like a web interface for them to be able to go and like choose some options. And every project manager, like BIM savvy or not, could go and just like pick the market, pick the address, pick the location, pick the north origin, pick what, and pick everything you need to get a project started, like without going through the BIM manager. And BIM manager only did like the backbones of the template and stuff. So it's like a very simple solution. But I think like it gave the digital practice team like less of a burden, and it gave the architecture and production team like more flexibility and control on and more speed. So I think like those connector, it's kind of adapters, like sometimes technology doesn't allow everyone to use it. And in software, this happens all the time. Right. So you kind of get a connector that easy things up, like no code websites and stuff. And it kind of teamed down the difficulty of doing something, and it kind of democratized the creation of a Revit file, and the digital practice team is happy and the architecture team is happy. And then, and it's not that we build templates, it's not that. So it's, I think this is a very smart solution.
So I love that precision where by being able to see the process, seeing what's happening in production, you're able to find those very minimal intervention solutions, but with huge impact. One thing I want to ask, and it's because I used to work for a firm that does a lot of production, and they would just say yes to everything. No matter what came through the door, there's like, yes. Even if you didn't have anyone to do it, just say yes, right? Make the sell first and then figure out it later. But it seems that you guys very much care about the relationship, very much care about making sure that you're in a situation that's successful. So what is that perfect relationship, that ideal relationship you are looking for with a customer, and what do you guys say no to?
So perfect relationship is one in which we're aligned in what we living and what you're looking for, and that means like long-term relationship. Like we're not the kind of company that would just like go help you for a 2-week period and do some drafting and like take you out of the rush and then like be out, because the impact we would have there would be so little that we rather work with firms who are really open to like elevate what they do and like like leverage a partner like us. So that's it. And that takes a lot of trust for sure, but it does take time. So like we're very open talking on what goes right and what goes wrong. Our team is insanely good. So like we're super confident that things like always get better. And we're very open to talk about that with our clients. So that's the kind of partnership we want. And then as our relationships grow, what I've noticed is that they start letting us in into, let's say, into more not only projects but like areas. And sometimes we get like, well, we're thinking about this. What do you think? Or just like, have you heard about this? So like, it's really like an all-in relationship and all-in like knowledge exchange.
So like a true partner, someone that they bring to the table very early on, even when they're just thinking about possibly going down or something. One thing that is emerging is that Slantis brings together a ton of different expertise, something that maybe a small, medium-sized firm doesn't have access to. Maybe someone who's even a large architecture firm might not have the breadth of understanding to incorporate all into one place. So for your company, how do you bring all these people together, all these different expertise, and how do you manage that knowledge?
So I think it goes back to the fact that we're very good like generating a context and good persuaders. So I think and we're a little bit of an external partner. So some people have said these guys are and these ladies are are the Switzerland of BIM, like. And because you have different people with different expertise and with different tastes, and some like very opinionated and very strong, and we are there, kind of seeing the whole picture and understanding each one's take. So like we do work with architects, we do work with a few developers, we with GCs, with fabricator. So we understand a little bit like each one's interests and incentives in a good way. So I think the value we bring in, it's a little bit of, like unbiased, fresh set of eyes and quality, and have seen that in many other different projects and in many other different firms. So I think that generates a lot of trust. So I think like creating the content and generating trust and being able to visualize everyone side, I think that's something we can do very well.
At this moment, I want to pick up on something you repeated several times, which is that you guys are very good persuaders. And I think persuasion is a skill that's very underrated in this industry. And I'm sure as external collaborators, you do hit upon some challenges when maybe there's internal resistance, maybe there's internal BIM teams that say, hey, we can do this. Why are you guys bringing in external people? So
that happens to us all.
In those situations, like, what's your strategy? How do you convince or persuade your client, to bring you guys in, the experts in the room?
I think is by doing and by sharing what we know. I think by doing and by sharing what we know, and like for what you mentioned on the digital practice team, like it why are you bringing an external party? Like sometimes we get that, and then what ends up happening if it's on the production side of things, like usually they're incredibly happy because they don't need to troubleshoot that project,
Right,
or things are set up right, or the models are clean, or the BIM requirements are comply, like without further help. So like we end up like that ends up like bringing us closer together and maybe participating in some of the things. And then another thing that I think it has to do with persuasion is so internally we are very fluid, and collaborative, but we do have like some processes that pave the road for that. So just like like from project management tracking, like I'm not saying like the time tracking out that I'm just like thinking about like who does what, and where do we put like ideas of improvement. So like we have all of our beautiful notions laid out that way, and every project has a notion, and then we can share that with the client. So it's like by showing that some of the clients say like, hey, I want to do that. Or like even when we do BIM discovery or BIM consultancy, what we deliver is a notion page, like with everything like very organized and stuff, and then they're like, oh, what is this? So like then we end up being a consultant in the sense that, well, if you want to have like a wiki browser, then you have like Notion, then you have like Confluent, and the pros and cons of it, because there's a lot of things out there and it's hard to choose.
So you guys do good work, you give them a peek under the hood about how you do the good work, and then clients end up seeing that and they're like, hey, we want that.
I don't like it.
That's
So we're very open about what we think and what we've done. And some things we've done things that we don't think they were the best things.
Right.
But
you don't sweep that under the rug
no.
and pretend it's all shiny and good,
Exactly.
right? You
Exactly.
expose, hey, this was bad, this was good, and you don't repeat the same mistake we did.
Exactly. And then you asked the no question, and I didn't answer that one. I think that's super important, like for having a company, let's say, with a soul. So I mean, we're hard on the sales side because we're a big team, like we're 100 people, so you gotta be mindful about that. But I think like from early on, we had the what are we going to say no to discussion, and I remember a moment in which Andy told me, because I didn't remember about this specific moment. It was Andy and me and two more people, so like we had to pay two extra people. And we had a client. We didn't want that client. And that client asked for, it was drafting, but doing it in a very horrible way, incendiary, horrible way. And I was like, we're not taking it. But we needed to take it because we were risking, like payroll and stuff. And Andy was like, we need it, we owe the office, whatever. I was like, we're not taking this, we're not doing it. And I think she told me, I told her, like, if you can sell cat, you can sell rabbit, right? Because we did some drafting at the beginning. And she took it very personally. And I don't remember about it, but I think like that story from the early on shows that you have to be very clear about, like, every 2 years or every 3, 5, whatever, like thinking what's going to be your next no. And sometimes it's about what you do specifically, like the type of service you provide. Sometimes it's the way in which you provide it, like something that happens to us is like, I need you to start tomorrow. And then we cannot deliver the amount of quality we usually deliver without, let's say, like properly onboarding our team into a specific firm, even if it's an existing client or an old client or a new client. But last year, let's say, like in last year's condition was a little bit slower, so we had to be a little bit more flexible with that. But I think like it's good to have clarity on that if you don't say no, your value proposition, it's getting diluted. And I think and that chases me every day. I'm like, we're not being innovative enough. Like what? Yeah. So like in a nutshell, I think we would say no to people who don't see the same things that we do. Sometimes we do that before even trying, very rarely. Sometimes we do that after we try, and we kind of rank that client in the low side of things, and then let it go. And then that's pretty much it.
But I think what I do love about Slantis is it takes a lot of courage to have this level of spirit, this level of identity. From the marketing, from the way you and Andy post on social media, from the way you guys just give off and exude this positive energy and this optimism for the industry. Whereas I feel like a lot of firms, a lot of companies in your category try to take a step back, try not to be too visible, try not to have too much of an opinion, because maybe to them it's a barrier for them to get the work that they want to. So why is it so important for you guys to create that unique identity, to come out guns blazing, high energy, and really show the world your optimism?
I think it attracts the right people. I think it attracts the right people. I'm not saying it's easy. Like we said yes a lot of time, we should have said no. But like I think the fact of acknowledging that it's very different than the fact of just like like blindfold you and say like no, like we I mean, it would have been impossible. So and I think I don't know, like I think that the reason on putting what you think out there is yesterday I was on a course, kind of a course, and we were talking about maths and stuff. And one of the things they mentioned is that when you actually do something with what you think, or a mathematical reasoning or a philosophy, or just like a paper engineering, whatever, you kind of close the circle of the thought. So you kind of like finalize the circle of the thought. And that's very important, because like if I think there's a lot of room for improvement in our industry, and design could be improved through this, if I just think about it and act on it, but don't, let's say, like communicate it, then the circle is not fully closed, because I'm not attracting the people who think the same way I think. And because I'm not attracting the people who would be worth talking to. So I think, like in my case, it has a little bit to do with that. I've met a lot of interesting people just by doing it.
Yeah, so by putting yourself out there, other people see it. They might not be putting themselves out there, but they see you as the center of gravity, and you're able to bring like-minded people together in this community.
Yeah, I think bringing like-minded people together is essential.
Oh, that's amazing. I think another thing that you guys do really well at Slantis is work remotely and hybrid, right? You guys are located in Uruguay. Most of your clients are in the US, I assume. Yes. You have to work across the internet. You're not sitting next to them. So this is something a lot of firms struggled with in the pandemic. Yes. Now we see a lot of companies bringing people back. So what is it that makes you so successful in managing a team this way? And what advice would you give other firms?
So I think what makes us successful in it is because we were born with it. So we started in 2016, and we started working for US. So we kind of set up the ground for that. And then in 2020, some people who didn't believe working remotely was possible were knocking our door, because and some of our clients didn't have the infrastructure for doing that. So we helped them through it. And I think it was a very nice, it was a very beautiful moment, because I mean, it proved that they trusted us, and it proved that we were up to the challenge. So I remember it as a very good moment of like giving that extra mile, and just like showing our commitment to what we do. So I think that's one thing. And then what advice would I give? So like for us, so we have an office in Uruguay, an office in Montevideo, an office in Buenos Aires, and then like a few people like fully global. I think there's a couple of thoughts here that are important to me. Like first, the culture of your company. The culture of your company will kind of drive the ambience or the context of each office. So we're not like global, we have two hubs. So like for us, that's very important, like having the hub and creating that in-person connection. And your culture is one, but you have different flavors in the sense that when we open our Buenos Aires brand is amazing, but if you think I have energy, they like have a lot of energy. Like they're always up and stuff. And I think like that's a flavor of our culture. That it's good to acknowledge it and reinforce it like within the Slantis culture. And then for Montevideo as well. So like so I think like do not try to fight the laws of culture. But be clear on defining what you think culture is and how do you want, and that for me is how do you want people to feel. And it's only good. You might want to make them feel a little bit challenged. Like I want our team to feel great, motivated, but challenged. Right. I just don't want them to only feel great and motivated. I want the challenge to be there. Or so I think you gotta be clear on choosing what's important, then allowing some flavors on top of that, like based on the hubs or based like on the geography or on the people as well. And then maybe like leveraging the technological systems that are out there already, and allow you to work remotely seamlessly. A company I really follow and like is Basecamp or 37 Signals up now. And Jason Fried, he writes, I like the way he writes, and then he has a book that's called Remote, a root cycle, a rework. I think he has like a very clear approach on, and a very cut to the chase approach on what's important and what's not.
So I think maybe this is cluing us into what some firms get wrong. You guys take culture first, and then you find the right technologies to empower that process. I feel like a lot of firms do it the opposite. They're like, hey, we need better project management, so let's go out and get, I don't know, Monday.com. Or we need better knowledge management. What can Notion do for us? But they pick the technology to solve a problem they don't yet quite understand about their own culture. For you, because you have exposure to so many different firms, you watch them adopt technology, adopt processes. What do you let them get wrong about implementing something, a piece of technology, a new process?
So first, I don't know if you have it right. I think like you need a little bit of humility. Like I love the culture we have, and it's like a very like creation that we put our heart and soul every day into it. I think you have to always to be feeding it, and you can create the culture you want. So there's no right or wrong. Like there's a study I like that shows that every company has 4 different types of cultures all together, but like in different proportions. I'll go through them. So one is the collaboration culture, like everyone's collaborates with everyone. The downside is not a lot of decision making. So the other one is the adhocracy culture. So like Google's well known for this. I think we have an adhocracy and a collaborative culture. Adhocracy culture, which is everything's ad hoc, and the IAC is an adhocracy. So like, so what the downside of that is like frustration, or overwhelming because you need to reinvent the wheel every time. Then market culture, like very competitive, very incentives driven. The downside of it is a toxic environment. And the other one is hierarchical, like plain hierarchical, typical. And the downside is poor innovation or information bottlenecks. So I think like you can have whatever mix you feel it's important. The only thing that's wrong is like thinking you have something and having another thing. So I think like what's wrong is if you think you have one type and you have the other type, or if you're going towards one type and then you're doing everything to go in another direction. So that being said, I think I think firms, I mean, we usually tend to try to pick firms who are more collaborative and foster innovation, like more ad hoc, because, but you cannot only have that.
Right.
You need to have a little bit of market, and you need to have a little bit of inside process to understand.
I love that framework because I worked for a large real estate management company that was definitely very hierarchical, but every all company meeting we had, they were like, "We're so innovative. This is how we innovate," and it was just moving bubbles on a PowerPoint, and nothing really happened. But I want to get to the forward-looking part of this conversation, which I know you have a lot of hot takes, a lot of bananas ideas about.
We're not going bananas yet.
But my first question is, how do you see the relationship between firms and their external collaborators evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see. So as we move forward, the industry is getting more complex. So the world we live in is incredibly complex, and you have an incredible amount of information and options and stuff, which is fantastic. But that requires a change in the bare bones on how you do things. So I think like in 2020, for other reasons, many companies changed the way they operate, and that had an impact on the built environment as well. So I think in the next year, in the next 5 to 10 years, the industry will get even more complex. And the software, so like now there's the couple of big like predominant software, like the softwares would become less monopolistic somehow. That's what I see. So you'll have different softwares for different stages, like more of a network, like instead of one big thing, more of a network. And then as that gets more complex, then you will need more people who are experts in different fields.
Right.
So like, and whether you go towards being a company who's an expert in different fields and understand the different technologies and the different architecture and stuff, whether you focus on design and managing the client and doing it in a way in which design is beautiful and our cities are better. So I don't think you can do both. Not, I mean, maybe at scale, yes, but similarly, I think architecture, we're going to have more of that in architecture firms, like probably more architecture firms, but smaller ones, and focus on different things, like more specialized. And then you cannot afford to have like an expert in technology in-house or an expert in like another thing, in like fabrication or something. So
as part of what you're saying, like because everything's getting more complex, you have to pick whether you're going to go wide or you're going to have to go deep.
Yes, you have you have vertical companies and horizontal companies in terms of technologies. So like verticals, they focus on one technology in particular, let's say AI, and horizontal, they focus on a market. Let's say like minery or something like that. Where in the AEC, like if you ask me, like what's your company like, vertical or transversal?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask you.
That's both. I mean, it's both, and it's both because of the context of the industry. It's both because of the context of the industry. And even if you see firms, they usually, I would say, like except for affordable housing at this year, they would focus on like public work, or just like healthcare and educational, let's say, or private sector. So our industry isn't as evolved because you see that the companies are nor vertical nor horizontal. And like, if you ask me, we're both. We're both. And then probably if you take our production team, it's something, and our consulting team is another thing. Like our consulting team, it's much more transversal.
But going both wide and deep carries with it risk, of course.
Exactly.
And you guys have a huge team of very talented people, but as we know, in the last 5 years, the market shifts very quickly.
Yes.
Sometimes this is hot, sometimes this is hot. How do you mitigate that risk? How do you make sure that the culture you build, the people that you have, can move with the market?
I think like before that, architecture is a very wide profession.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think that is in our favor. And then I think our approach towards change, it's very pro change.
Mm-hmm.
So like that involves like having systems in place. Let's say like even I don't know, like I remember it was a time in which life science, like a few years ago, life science was huge. So like we were having a lot of life science project, and we built that expertise, and that expertise does lead in the people who did life science, but also like in our wikis, in our videos, and in intro, and in like knowledge building. So I think like knowledge building is a big part of like being nimble to change and not being afraid of just like diving into something maybe you haven't done before, but it doesn't mean that you cannot do it like with the right support. So that's it. I don't know what you're laughing.
Well, I feel like it's something that I don't hear a lot from people from firms
Okay.
in our industry. They don't necessarily see that ability to manage knowledge, manage the transfer of knowledge as an important aspect of
That's super important.
their company. I hear a lot of, hey, you know, have the junior pay their dues and eventually they'll learn. But it seems like you guys have a very different approach of where you seek knowledge and how you bring it back into the ecosystem in order to disseminate it to as many people as quickly as possible.
Definitely. Even like when people join, I know because we were like reframing our onboarding. When people join, like they have an onboarding process, and then like within that process, and it's kind of very self-managed. And then within that process, like they have like small tests and stuff, and so you kind of get into the swing of things and understand that information is out there, and then you gotta go and chase it, and then like if you don't find it in the wikis, then you have our hot desk, just like a discourse platform in which you just like post up, and then once you start to get engaged, then you gotta help other people. So it's kind of like the system itself, it's fed by so many people that it starts to get robust in itself.
That's really amazing. One of my biggest complaints, I think, about our industry is that the information ecosystem is very old-fashioned. It's very much a push-based information system where, as a junior, you get told to work on this, information is pushed to you, then you get told to work on this, information is pushed to you, but there's very few places where you can pull and say, hey, I need this information at this right moment to help me unblock this piece of work. But what I love about what you guys have created is you set them up for success from the get-go. Like, hey, we're going to teach you that you need to pull on the information that you need, and here's the whole ecosystem we've built around that. So having that ecosystem, do you feel like it's empowered you to learn more faster because you have so many people trying to pull in information that when they're on the edge of the system where you might not have that piece of knowledge, you see it and you're like, okay, let's go out, let's get this piece of knowledge and bring it back to the table?
What do you mean, like learning like that you get pressure to learn faster, or that we learn faster as a company?
I think you learn faster as a company. Like the boundaries around your knowledge gets bigger and bigger faster.
Yes, that for sure. I mean, what I say, and I think it's that instead of learning at a pace of one person, you learn at a person of 100%, because so knowledge management is it's a pretty fascinating topic, because there are some people that think about not time management but knowledge management, and I think like it's a very, very, very big shift. Like there's a book, Tiago Forte, he talks on that, and it's not like how you manage your knowledge, it's an immense power. So like the fact that you have knowledge available and it's not within your mind, it's kind of like you having knowledge within your mind. Like if when you ChatGPT stuff or just like go to Wikipedia, it kind of, you don't know it, but you know you can know it like this. So I think like that's what we kind of do. But for that, you need very good and curated content. So that takes a lot of time too.
That's amazing. I feel like if I was going back 10 years when I was a junior architect, this is probably one of my biggest frustrations. Like, I'm stuck on something, everyone else is busy,
Yes.
nowhere to go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're just stuck. But as I've shifted into the software industry, it's a lot better. And it seems like you guys are taking a lot of the great practices
Definitely.
and bringing it back to the
We
industry.
stole that from there, like from my digital fabrication moments. Like we saw everything I've learned on the software development side. It was because other people documented their work.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like,
documentation is not just doing drawings, right? You gotta document knowledge as well. As someone who's very passionate about the industry, as someone who built something from their frustrations to bring something new and something better into our world, if you can change one thing about how our industry approaches teamwork, what would that be?
teamwork in general. I think there's something before teamwork that would affect teamwork. Like I can go to the root of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think like incentives are a very big thing in our industry, and like all this goes down to how the AEC is structured and what are the different stakeholders and what the incentives are on each end. So like if that system is not incentivizing teamwork among all the different stakeholders, then it's hard for teamwork to happen, like even within an architecture firm. So I think like we need to go back like to the bigger picture and understand like there's different stakeholders with different interests and with different expertise and incentives that are very powerful tool. So I think like that would balance out a little bit more.
That's actually something we talk a lot about on this podcast, where we're almost in this deadlock as an industry where the business models are just stuck in a way that's not conducive to a level of collaboration that we're all looking for. But you see a lot of companies, you see a lot of different areas of the value chain. Is there a particular place or a particular set of companies that are doing things a little bit differently that you feel optimistic about how they're potentially going to change the business model of AEC?
I won't name any company here, but what I can tell you I've seen is more interest. Like it's going super slow, but I think the world is changing so fast that people are starting to at least get interest or see where everything's going. So like it's like there's a new generation coming in. So I think we're gradually moving forward. At some point it would be a bigger shift. Like I'm very positive, so I see things moving along at a very slow pace, but I see today interest or at least like openness or just need. Even if it's like developer driven and stuff that wasn't there before. And like nobody wanna go first. Like they all wanna do it, but nobody wanna go first. It just like takes one person to wanna do it first. So
we're coming around to our final question, which I have of course prompted you on, so you got a lot of thinking time. But a major reason why we do this podcast and bring great people like you on is we're all trying to figure out what era we're currently in. When we're in the future, looking back on this time, what would you say is the era that we're in?
So I was thinking about this question when I was coming here because I read it while I was coming here. I think we are in an era in which will mark if you're going to be critical thinkers or not. So it's a very border comment. We can go bananas here. So we are in a moment in which pairing quantity and quality would be the difference in like evolving as a species or not. So like we're very incentivized toward quantity and not really quality. And I think critical thinking is a very good aspect, very important aspect there. Like from the very beginnings, like from education, like do not take things for granted and question those. And I'm gonna steal a story I heard on Lex Friedman's podcast, which is like, imagine Galileo in 1600s. Imagine if you asked ChatGPT about Galileo being right or wrong. And Galileo was the one who said, just in case that we live in a solar system in which the sun is in the center and not the earth, which is like what was believed until then. So if you ask, let's say, ChatGPT for the sake of things like that, then he or she or they, I don't know, could say Galileo wasn't right because the people around didn't believe he was right. Or he could have said he was right because he had done the math. But then if the church back then owned ChatGPT, probably that wouldn't been answered. And then so like before the pursuit of the truth, it was like a king or priest things, and then like as the world got more complex and evolved, and like we're in a world in which like the level of complexity is too high, too big to handle. The pursuit of the truth it's becoming much more difficult, because you gotta have your critical thinking like back there to really understand if what you're getting is something that aligns to what you think, and then you gotta be able to question what you see out there and what don't. So I think we live in an era in which we gotta be very suspicious about what there is out there, and trying to build up our knowledge and our like level of reasoning in order to keep building that up, even if you have information at reach.
So I know I don't have my co-host here, but I feel like one of the questions they would ask is, there's probably not a lot of great critical thinking being taught, especially in design school right now. So if you're giving advice to a student today and you're saying, hey, this is a really important skill for you to develop, how should they go about doing that?
I have another story for this. So I think like my advice would be, ask yourself, why do we do things like that? I hate people when say like, we've always done it like that. I'm like, wow. So I think like it's good to always ask yourself, like, why do we do things like that? And who invented it and why, and what was the context? And then think about if that context has changed. Like in architecture, for me, there's many things we're in a very small part of the whole process. Then there's so many things that didn't make sense until I understood like all the stakeholders of the industry and what strings everyone pull. So like I think like asking yourself like, why do we do this like that? When it was created and what was the context like, it's a very good way to go. And then the story is I have a very good friend, one of my best friends, and she studied architecture as well in the AA. I was like, she's a brain. So when she was studying and we were chatting about it, I was like, what is it like? Like, tell me about it. And she was like, the thing I like here is they don't teach you how to design a kitchen. They teach you to question why there are drawers. And like it really stood to me. I was like, I should have go to that kind of kitchen, in which I was just like, I just don't want to design the kitchen. I just like want to do a paper on whatever. And they would say, I know you need to design the kitchen. So I think you cannot do that with everything every day because it would drive you nuts. But I think like it's good to choose a couple of things and try to understand like why they're done, the word they're done, and who invented it, and what was the context, to kind of compare that to today and see if it makes sense to keep doing things the same way.
So be suspicious, question everything, and really think critically about the answers that you're getting and whether things make sense from a first principles perspective.
I think that's a very good recap.
So if I'm someone out there and I'm saying, okay, I'm now going to ask a lot of questions, Mercedes, I want to ask you a bunch of questions, where can I find more about you and more about Slantis?
So you can look me up on LinkedIn, Mercedes Carriquiry, Slantis is very loud on the internet, so I'm sure you'll find that out. And we've got a website, slantis.com. So yeah, I hope we can engage in interesting conversations.
Amazing. If this is your first time listening, please give us a like and subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you're listening. It really helps us find more great guests like Mercedes. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Most Podern.
Most Podern.
Most Podern.
Most Podern. 모스트 포던 팟캐스트